I just have a couple of announcements kind of real quick. I do want to mention that the codependency series is on the YouTube channel and also on Vince's Corner. But if you go to Vince's Corner, you can also access the YouTube channel. Okay, just to let you know about all that stuff. We're trying to get all that straightened out. So eventually we'll have an extra section, we hope, on the homepage for all that stuff. So from there, okay, right now, if you want to get the recordings, just go to Vince's Corner. Also, anything else going on here at Starting Point, we do have counselors here seeing people. The doors are open, so we're getting a little bit at a time. Things are starting to come back. So thank God for that anyway. See what happens. Some of our groups are here, but in our group rooms, we put 55-inch TVs so they can do Zoom and group at the same time. So it's really been a lot of changes, a lot of good things happening. So we're grateful for a lot of that. And of course, we're grateful for all of you. That's the most important piece. So I'm going to begin by doing the reading from the language of letting go. And I chose today's reading because it kind of indirectly connects with what we're going to talk about today. Living with families. We may love and care about our family very much. I want to just mention this. When I use the word family in this reading, remember what I said last week about the 5 different families. So family has a much broader name than just your blood family. We may love and care about our family very much. Family members may love and care about us, but interacting with some members may be a real trigger to our codependency, sometimes to a deep abyss of shame, rage, anger, guilt, and helplessness. It can be difficult to achieve detachment. Difficult, but not impossible. The first step is awareness and acceptance. Simple knowledge without guilt of our feelings and thoughts. Not have to blame our family members and not have to blame or shame ourselves. Acceptance is the goal. Acceptance and freedom to choose what we want and need to do in order to take care of ourselves with that person. We can become free of the patterns of the past. We are recovering. Progress is the goal. Today, higher power, help me be patient with myself as I learn how to apply recovery behaviors with family members. Help me strive today for awareness and for acceptance. Okay. Now I can see you again. It's kind of neat since I got these new eyes. I can see everything so clearly. It's great, except for reading. I gotta put the things back on for reading. Anyway, I want to just remind everybody, last week we started the series off by talking about codependency, and I gave a definition of codependency. I defined it as any person, place, or thing that I've built a dependency on, which means I can't function without it. That makes my life unmanageable and makes my life crazy. I also mentioned last week, I talked about family systems and the aspect of family systems. And so today I want to concentrate primarily on them, but I want to kind of share that based around a principle. You've heard this term a long time ago. Yes, Virginia, there is a normal. And yes, there are normals, but normals are the process of change. They're changing all the time. And so many of us in growing up as children, as we do an inventory of our family systems, remember what I said last week, if you go back and look at the first 10 years of your life, you'll be able to see all the messages, the patterns, the things that were developed and kind of implanted into us in the course of that journey. And so as a result of that, then, we have to be able to develop new normals, and yet the old ones are still there. And that's really important. And that's where that reading today talked about acceptance. I got to accept the old, embrace it. It's not about blaming. It's not about looking what's wrong. It's about accepting the old, embracing it, learning from it, and growing from it. Because everything we do in recovery is about growth. And so I want to go through the 5 different family systems with you today and just share some ideas and some things, because I would like you, if you have time, to sit down and do an inventory of your own 5 families. And I share that because if you look at my family system when I was growing up, and I kind of get a kick out of this now, I guess it's nice when you're old, because I actually have experienced the change process. Being born in 1940, I actually am not even a baby boomer, I'm a war baby. And so experiencing that through the process I have seen so many changes take place over the years that I actually have a history of all aspect of change. It's just totally amazing when you think back about it. And just think back, way back then, things were a lot simpler and a lot different. And yet today things have changed. So my granddaughter, who was born in 1998, her first 10 years are from 98 to 2008. Her concept of her family systems are totally different than mine. And that's really important to understand because all of us come out of different foundations and different backgrounds. Just to give an example, we begin with family of origin, blood family. And growing up as a child, I grew up in a real old-fashioned tradition Italian Catholic home in Camden, New Jersey. And again, we lived back then because things were different. We lived in our little compound, as I call it. I always get a kick out what I call the Italian compound. And our street, all my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everybody was all together. And so as a result, then we knew everybody else's business. And of course, their nose was in everybody else's business. It was totally amazing. I got a kick out of it. And so basically, you can get away with anything. But in this, we also learned certain rules and regulations. Some of the traditional ones that growing up, I was taught, always wear clean underwear. God forbid you're getting in an accident. I don't want to be embarrassed. I might be dead, but I don't want you to be embarrassed. God forbid. All things. For example, my mother used to say to me all the time, if God wanted you to fly, God would have given you wings. Do you know that played so much for me in my life? I've been flying an airplane until I was 48 years old. When I got married, my wife actually got me to fly. And I was scared to death. But I still joke about it. I fly a lot today, but I joke about it because sometimes I walk down that walkway and I could swear my mother's going to be standing there, going to yell at me and scream at me. And sometimes I want to turn around and go back. She might be around that corner. But so all these little tapes, they play in your head, the things you experienced. For example, my mother was so overprotective that we couldn't even, basic things. My mother always worried about me getting hurt. So I was never allowed to ride a bicycle. And I joke about this today. I learned to ride my bike when I was 51 years old. And I have actually a video of the chief of police of Williamstown, New Jersey, who's 5 years older than me, running down the street holding the seat while I'm learning how to ride a bicycle. Can you think that about a sight for sore eyes? It's totally amazing. And yet today, I love my bike. So it's a whole different ballgame when you come right down to it. And so the concept is, it's almost like you have to develop new normals, although we picked up a lot of patterns, and those fears, those things that are drilled inside of you kind of stick with you. Another good example, we lived in an Italian neighborhood. It was about neighborhood, cultural environment, the effect it has on you. We lived in an Italian neighborhood, and we had a rule. You don't hang around anybody unless they're Italian. Everybody else, I guess, was unclean. I don't know. We used to call them Mexicans. Everybody remember the Mexicans? And so basically, we don't hang around them. Even in Camden, we had the Italian Catholic Church, the Irish Catholic Church, the Spanish Catholic Church, the African American Catholic Church, the German Catholic Church, the Polish Catholic Church. We had so many damn churches. But the rules, you only go to the Italian Catholic Church. As a kid, I actually thought if I went in the other church, something would happen to me. It was totally amazing. Things were so segregated and so pulled off, and yet a lot of our prejudices, a lot of things that we picked up and patterns came from that. Give you an example. My cousin was the first person in our family, he had a lot of guts, I'll tell you. First person in our family to actually date an Irish girl. God forbid. And then he married her. His mother got so angry at him, as far as she was concerned, her son was dead. It took her a couple of years to finally break through and begin to talk to him. That's how powerful those rules were back then. The fears, the things that came into play back then. And in reality, even love was surrounded by fear. I mean, in your neighborhood, your environment, you had all these rules you had to live by. If you didn't live by them, it's almost like you were ostracized. So things change over the course of years. And I bring this out because what was normal back then is not normal today. And yet, we have the power inside of ourselves to create new normals, to open the door for change and for growth. It's a beautiful phrase in our recovery program, the openness to change and grow. Growth is a big part of our process of growth, a process of life. And yet we have a hard time with that. It's the same thing when it comes to religion or anything else. Things that were normal back then, may not be normal today. In fact, on Facebook the other day, there was a wonderful photograph of this nun with a big yardstick standing there like this. And believe it or not, when I saw it, I got a little stiff. It's almost like, an old tape played in my head because, talk about the fear of God. I joke about it today, but the nuns back then actually were training us for the Marines. And so basically, if you really got messed up, you get smacked around. Well, guess what? Today, they'd be arrested for child abuse. Back then, it was normal. And so normals have this tendency of constantly changing. And so things were connected there. And the big thing I bring out is so many of us grew up so many times with rules and regulations. For example, little kids should be seen and not heard. Keep your mouth shut. And one of the big rules we had was you never, ever, ever, ever talk about the family. La familia. You don't talk about the family. You keep quiet. And so I learned over the years a lot of fears, a lot of anxieties, and yet it took me a while, to be honest with you, to break some of these patterns. And even the way things were done, because back in those days, children didn't really have a voice. And here's the big thing I want to share with you, because so many times as little children growing up, we don't have a voice. And to be able to establish that voice is really important. It's almost like we're not allowed to have feelings. We were told, don't get upset. I'm in an eating disorder program today. My mother used to tell me all the time, if you're upset, go eat, you'll feel better. Go do this, you'll feel better. God forbid you share your feelings, you talk about your feelings. That's where the shame and the guilt and all that stuff came into play. But it was a different world back then. And the world today is different. And I've learned something finally. You can't go back. I don't want to go back, believe me, but you can't go back. You got to move forward. You got to be open to new things and new directions. And it's one of the things that's pretty powerful in the process of recovery, which is so important. To break the bonds of codependency, though, many of us have a tendency to still operate by those old tapes that play in our head. And it's hard to make changes, to look at things differently. Just to give you an example, when I first got into my eating disorder recovery and I began to lose weight and I began to change my lifestyle and everything else, I remember my uncle, and I love my uncle, God rest his soul. I go see him, and again, I was in good shape. I felt good. I felt great. My uncle would say to me, "What's wrong with you? You used to look good. Doesn't your wife feed you? Come to my house. I'll get my wife to fatten you up a little bit." But see, again, they're used to you being a certain way. And many concepts in life, it's the exact same thing. We take the exact same pattern so many times. And many of us, especially those of us that are caretakers, peaceful people have expectations of us. If you don't live up to those expectations, then all of a sudden you're put down. Just like people have a vision of what you're supposed to be. I can equate to this in many ways because In my family, when I got ordained a priest in 1966, I was the cat's meow. I was everything to my family. I mean, good God, I was like, you couldn't get the pedestal high enough to get me the hell on. But the bottom line was, everybody looked at me like I was this mystical person. But then when I left the priesthood, I went from the pedestal, I don't know where the hell I went. I was down at the bottom there someplace. Even I did all the funerals in my family, but after I left the priesthood, when somebody died, I had to find out who it was in the obituary column. It's almost like people didn't know how to handle change going on inside of you. Even today, people will say to me, do you mind if I could still call you Father Vince? I said, all right, call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. That's all. You can call me. But the bottom line is some people don't want to move out of their patterns. They're used to them. But that's okay. We all have to find out what works for us and what direction works for us. Same thing as regards our peers in growing up. Your peers had a very strong influence on you. And very many times you got embarrassed in many situations, or at least I did anyway. My mother, I gotta love her. I love my mom. God rest her soul. But my mom was so overprotective of me. When I was a little kid growing up, my mom would say, we'll go out and play. She would go out with me to make sure nobody hurt me. That does wonders, really wonders for your ego. It's totally amazing when you come right down to it, And then basically she stand there and watch me like a hawk. All I wanted to do was crawl under the table. After a while, I didn't want to go out, to be perfectly honest with you. I got scared because I got called nicknames. Kids are great. You know what kids do to kids? I was mama's boy, mama's little pet, church mouse. I had some wonderful nicknames when I was a kid. And as a result, then basically, I can still remember some of that shame and some of that guilt, even when I deal with my body image today and things inside of me today. As a child growing up, I was always a little bit heavy and I had larger breasts. And as a result, kids would play games with me. They would grab them and they would call me names and say all kinds of things. And even today, my wife will tell you, I'll go to the beach, I'll leave my t-shirt on. I still have this pattern of my body image. It takes me a while to finally take it off, take the t-shirt off, because I still feel that embarrassment inside of myself as a person. It's amazing sometimes how you look back on your journey and realize, that's why I try to tell people, we have this computer up here. And all these little things are etched into our memory, even traumas and things that happen to us are etched into our memory. They may not come out for a period of time. You've heard the term PTSD. A lot of times things will come out a lot later that affected you as a child. Because as a child, you didn't know you had the right to talk about it. You didn't know you had the right to have a voice. And we have to really work on in the recovery process from codependency is developing a voice, because voices are very important in this process. It's the same thing when it comes to society. And this is the thing I get so amazed when I look at it, because I grew up in a world when I was a kid where our central thing was radio. Everything centralized around radio. There were no TVs. There was none of the stuff we have today. And so as a result, we lived our life around radio. Even baseball games were played in the daylight. There were no lights. Games were suspended when it got dark to finish the next day. It was totally amazing. I remember going to Shibe Park, Connie Mack Stadium, and going to see a ball game. I used to get in for about 10 cents, 15 cents for a game, see a doubleheader for a quarter. It was great. But back then, everything started early in the day. Even the World Series was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We actually had school canceled so we go home and listen to the World Series. It's totally amazing. You come right down to it. And yet these were normal things back then. And today things have changed. I remember when the first TV came out, right around 1947. And We actually had one on our street. I always loved the first TV. It was about as wide as my desk over here. It was unbelievable. And basically, it had about 30 tubes in it. We had a guy going around the streets of Camden called the Tube Man. He'd come around with tubes, but they kept burning out all the time. You had to keep changing them constantly. We had a 7-inch screen, black and white, and we had one channel, NBC. Is that amazing? And we only had 3 hours a day of TV, 6 o'clock at night till 9 o'clock at night. We had the same shows on every night. From 6 o'clock, you had the newsreel. And it actually was like a newsreel. You would look at all the stuff going on for the day. At 6:30, you had Howdy Doody, and Clarabelle, the puppet show. At 7 o'clock, you had Frontier Playhouse, all the old cowboy shows, The Lone Ranger, Roy Rogers, all those crazy, Hopalong Cassidy, all those crazy shows. And then at 8 o'clock, you had a variety show. Sid Caesar, Amy Jagoga, Jimmy Durante, all those headliners back then. And so as a result, 9 o'clock at night, they played the Star Spangled Banner, and you're done to the next night. Today, what do we have? 3,000 channels? I don't know. We have TVs in different rooms. Pretty soon you'll have one on your wrist. You probably do already. I mean, I haven't got that far yet. Pretty soon I always joke to put a chip in here, so we don't have to use any technique, and we just listen to everything constantly all day long. It's almost like we moved to a totally different direction in technology today. And all this has an effect on us and who we are as people. And so it's almost like we go through these transitions, we go through these changes, we have to be able to adjust. And that's why I always talk about the importance of realizing the fact that we're in a constant process. I always say when I die, I want them to put on my tombstone, trust the process works. Everything in life is a constant process. Everything is always changing. Nothing stays the same. And so if you don't go with the change and be open to the change and try to learn from it, then you're going to stay back into a little world. I remember when I used to fight this stuff like crazy, man. Oh God. I remember back in the days when I had an old flip phone. Yeah, I finally got a flip phone. That was a miracle in itself. But then my granddaughter talked me into getting something called a smartphone. I said, what the hell is a smartphone? What do you do with a smartphone? But then all of a sudden I realized the fact she helped me set it up. Then she said to me, Papa, we're going to go to the app store and get you some apps. I got my coat. I thought we're going to the mall. I don't know where we're going. She said, no, the store's in your phone. There's a store in my phone. Well, the amazing part about it is it took me a while. I had to really open my head and open my mind, because I used to fight and battle this stuff. But then I realized something. All of a sudden, I began to realize if I don't take a look at this, I'm going to live in a different world, an alternate universe. And so now all of a sudden, I got a smartphone. Now all of a sudden, I have email. Saves me stamps anyway. What can I tell you? But the bottom line is, we have all these things today we never had before. And Loretta will yell at me on this one. We call it technology, and it makes us half nuts half the time, even setting things up and doing things in this direction. Who would ever think back when I was a child, we'd have a computer with Zoom, that we could see so many people at one time? It's just totally amazing. And yet you have to realize the fact, you have to look at that and try to look at it in a positive way. But always remember, everything in life has a negative and it has a positive. We call that the balance of life, the yin and the yang. Everything in life is that aspect of balance. And so, yeah, change takes place, but you have to be able to try your best to look at the positive side of change and use it in a positive way. We can see today where technology can be used destructively. It can be used to manipulate people. People are using it, almost as a weapon today. And yet, is sad sometimes because we have a tendency, because of our humanness, to take things that could be very positive and very beautiful and create into something crazy and insane with it. But that's the choices we make as human beings. And that's really important. And even today, to look at this, we got to try to look at it in a positive way, because I never in my life imagined I'd be going to meetings or be on Zoom with people from across the West Coast. I mean, Ann's here tonight, today. It's not tonight yet, Ann. I know out there it's pretty early, but she's in California. But the concept is, I got Billy, my buddy Billy, he knows me back when I was a little younger. Okay, he's out in Arizona. We have Casey, who's from Texas. We have people coming in from all over the country, and it's, my God, it's so good to be able to connect with people in different directions. And yet, there's a very beautiful thing to this, a positive thing to this. And that's why I really believe that we have to be open to the future. Where's it going to go? I don't know. And maybe we have to even try. It's hard sometimes. I know that all the people have lost their lives and what has happened. We have to look at this pandemic we're going through and look at it and try our best to look at it in a positive way. What lessons can we learn from it? What good can we do from it? Yes, there's loss, and yes, there's hurt, and yes, there's pain, and yes, there's struggle. And I look back on my own life, my own journey, my own family systems and everything else, and I realize what my parents went through, and even things they were involved in, things they experienced. I mean, my parents were part of an arranged marriage. There's such a thing as an arranged marriage today. Maybe it is. We have those dating sites called, Match.com. Maybe they are. I don't know. But the concept is not in the same way, I don't think. So it's all part of that process we go through today. Never in my life did I ever think that you could actually send and get your DNA checked and find out your background, where you came from, ancestry, all those things. They're exciting. I was really powerful to be able to go on Ancestry and see my dad, where he came from, where he came into this country, who sponsored him, where he had to basically sign in as an immigrant coming into this country. And to think about some of these things. See, I used to spend a lot of time in my process of recovery looking at people from my past and being angry at them and blaming them. I realize today, no, they were who they were. And I have to be able to go and look back on my history and try to look and learn from it and grow from it and try to use it as a teachable moment to realize there's so many beautiful things in life to be learned. And that's why I have to try to use things in a positive way. And that's why we have to stay away from the negativity, stay away from the craziness and the insanity, and be able to be open to new things and new directions in life. I guess that's one of the gifts I love so much about recovery. Because in recovery, they have this positive attitude of trying to teach us the value of change, the value of growth. I even tell very many people in doing their inventory and doing their history, don't do it negatively. Don't look at all these things that happen to you. They happen, yes. But I have to be able, as the reading said today, embrace them, accept them, learn from them, grow from them. Your history is your most powerful teacher on the face of this earth. It is so beautiful and so fantastic. Don't run away from it. Be in touch with it. And be open to new things and new directions. Where's it going to go tomorrow? I don't know. I don't want to know. I want to try to the best of my ability to celebrate today. Be open to this moment and see where the future leads us. To look back and realize all the people that have come through our journey, people we've experienced in the course of our journey. The other day I was going through names from our memorial wall at Starting Point. I looked at all the memories, all the things of people from the past. I looked at the gentleman that got me started in the field of addiction. I don't think he knew that when he did it. In 1969, I was a young priest in a parish in Vineland, New Jersey. I told you back then, living with an alcoholic pastor. And this gentleman who I never met in my life knocked on the door one night and said to me, he introduced himself, and his name was Morgan, and he said, "Come with me." I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "Don't worry about it. Just come with me," one of my parishioners. He took me to my first 12-step meeting, Al-Anon. Of course, I wasn't ready to hear the stuff they had to talk about. I was too stubborn back then. I really thought I was so happy to be at Al-Anon because they were going to give me the formula to fix him. But these people are very strange, kept telling me to work on me. I didn't need any work. Why we don't work on me for? I don't have any problems. And yet, I'm so grateful today because that was the key that opened the door to a whole new journey for me in my life, a whole new journey in a whole different direction. And over the years, so many simple, beautiful people that touched my life, I'm sure touched all of your lives. And that's why I really encourage you, don't be afraid to go back and look at your history, to look at things that have occurred, and try to look at them through the art of healing, through the art of learning, through the art of growing. That's what's so important because we're never done. Who wants to be done? It's so much more fun just to move forward and to enjoy. I'm laughing my head off because now they tell me I'm in the golden years. I don't know. What can I tell you? And my neighbor across the street, I won't tell you what she says about the golden years. But anyway, the only thing gold she has is when she goes to the bathroom. That's about it. But the concept is, basically we look at these things through different sets of eyes, different directions, and realize in so many ways, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful today for all the years I've had on this earth. I say that every morning in my prayers and my meditation. I thank God every day for the gift of this day, for the gift of this moment, for the gift of each and every individual person in the course of my journey in life. I'm so glad to be in the office today that I can look around the room and I see so many wonderful photographs of things. I'm looking at a beautiful picture of Camden, the way it was way back when I was a kid. But I have to laugh at this. When I give talks at rehabs, and I got people in front of me that are 20 years old in the drug and alcohol rehab, and I'll tell them I was born and raised in Camden. They go, "Oh, how did you survive there?" Because their vision of Camden is where they cop drugs. The vision of Camden was how it affected in their life. My vision is totally different. We were kids. We had the Tower Theater in Camden. It was on Broadway and Line, right around the corner from my house. And every Sunday afternoon, they would have a stage show and bring in great names. I got to see Frank Sinatra, Jimmy Durante, Jackie Gleason, Perry Como. Every week they had a different headliner. I got to hear Guy Lombardo. I got to see Louis Armstrong and his orchestra. Even got to have supper with Louis Armstrong at the rectory. It was totally amazing because he played for our 50th anniversary of our church. We got to meet people on a human basis. You look at things even in the sports world. When I was a kid, people that played for the Phillies lived in our neighborhood. They lived right in our neighborhood. It was crazy. I forgot to shut the crazy thing off. But they lived in our neighborhood. There was a gentleman that played for the Phillies. His name was Willie Puttenhead Jones. I don't know if any of you remember him or not. He played for the Phillies. Yeah, good. We got somebody. Good job, Wayne. In the 1950s, the Whiz Kids. He was the third baseman. He lived in our neighborhood. He walked past our house every day. He waved to us. And in the wintertime, when out of baseball season, he worked at food fair in a supermarket, stacking shelves. It was a different world back then. Everything was just right there. And now it's different. I wrote an article called The Spirituality of Baseball. I'll have to dig it up and pull it out again and maybe put it up for everybody. But I talked about the transition and change. And sports actually have taught us the transition and change in the world that we live in. I mean, Billy remembers back when we put that little ragtime team together. It was really great, and we had got uniforms and we were so excited and we had so much fun. It was totally amazing back then, you know, and at the same time, things are different today. That's okay. They are different. But sometimes we have a tendency to go too fast. And so maybe we have to learn to slow ourselves down. The secret of what I'm talking about today is take a look at your family history. Take a look at the things you've come through in your history and your journey, and try to look at them in a positive way, in a way of learning, in a way of growing. Be open to change, be open to growth, be open to new things and new directions. Even when it comes to a sense of faith and belief, even that's in process of changing. My connection to a higher power, my connection to God today is totally different than it was back when I was a kid. I was scared to death of God when I was a kid. I knew God was out to get me back then. Today, I have a loving relationship with the God of my understanding. I call God the boss. I talk to the boss every morning. I check and see, and I'm like the employee. I got to check and see what he's got for me today. He wants me to do, to try to be open to his will. And I can really learn things differently today. Why I get excited about that? Because I can learn from all different faiths, all different places, all different things, all different directions. I even had the opportunity as a priest to pray in a mosque, to take part in prayer services with them. Because when I was a priest in Atlantic City in an all African American parish, there was a mosque right around the corner from us. And I became great friends with everybody there. And we learned, and so we're all connected to one another. And I can learn something from everybody, everywhere, every place. It's a growth process. People ask me today, are you still Catholic? I say, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I'm Jewish, sometimes I'm Buddhist, sometimes I'm a little bit of everything. But I'm open. I'm open to learn, I'm open to grow, I'm open to new things and new directions. And that is what life really is all about. So what I'm trying to do is get you excited about looking at your own family history, but to look at it with a positive attitude, even though I understand you may have to work through some of the negative stuff that happened to you to be able to come to the positive side. Most important thing is to give your little girl or your little boy a voice. Give them the opportunity to express their feelings. And if they can release the negative stuff, they'll discover the positive stuff. Because from every negative, there's a positive. From every hurt, there's a growth. For every mistake, there's growth. It's all part of the process we go through in life. Helps understand family systems just a little bit better and realize that, yes, Virginia, there is a normal. And our normals are in process of changing every day. So let's be open to those changes. So next week, what I want to do to continue this on codependency, I want to talk about how to play and how to have fun. So I'm going to give you some assignments for next week. Hope you don't mind. I would like you, if you get the opportunity, to spend some time and see if there's anything you can find that reconnects you to your childhood. It could be a doll, it could be a stuffed animal, it could be anything. But if you come next week, if you have the opportunity, bring a stuffed animal with you too. I got lots of stuffed animals. I'll tell you all about them. In fact, my buddy Ray is sitting right here with me right now. I call him Little Vinny. He's my buddy. And so basically, I'll show them all to you next week, and we'll get connected with them. So we'll talk about just enjoying and having some fun next week. See, here's the problem. Adult children of alcoholics and codependents take life very, very, very seriously. God, we're exhausting. We don't know how to be loose a little bit and relax a little bit. Sometimes we're a little bit too rigid. Loosen up. You got to take risks. You got to go on with the journey. So we'll have some fun next week, okay? So not too serious next week. You got to keep it simple and work in that direction. Then the week after that, we'll talk about codependency and relationships. I have to get serious again with that one. and then we'll do the roles of codependency. And then we'll work on the recovery process from it. So like I said earlier, all these are being recorded, and they are going on. Usually we record on Wednesday. We try to have them on by Friday or Saturday. So basically they'll be on Vince's Corner and also on our YouTube channel too. So all these things will be connected there. And we're trying the best we can to put together all this technology, and I'm learning one thing, boy. Some of these people that really know this stuff, they speak a language of their own. I think it really ought to be classified as a language. Even in texting, they got letters. They're supposed to mean something. I don't know. So I'm getting better at it.
You're very good at it, Vince. Come on.
I know. Well, John and I are really getting better at it. It's fantastic. So we'll go from there. Right, John? We're getting good at this stuff. I'm going to kind of close out today with a prayer for you, a prayer for your families, to help us to be able to connect this together. Let us pray. God, thank you for bringing us together as a family today. Thank you for the journey we've all been on. Thank you for our history. Thank you for our past. Even though there's stuff in our past that may hurt, there's stuff in our past that may have taken us in a direction we don't want to go into. Give us the strength, with your help and your guidance, to be able to learn and grow from our history, to learn from our mistakes, from the things that happened to us. Teach us to forgive. Teach us to heal. Teach us to look back and realize everything we've experienced was part of our journey. Teach us to try to appreciate the little things we have in life. Appreciate the gift of life, the gift of the small things we have, family, the gift of recovery. Please teach us not to take anything for granted. But above all, teach us to remember always those who have gone before us, those who have given us the memories. Look at them and realize they have crossed over to the other world, and they are there to support us now and help us on our journey. And so we thank God for each and every human being, each and every person we've experienced. But above all, we thank God for you, our guide, our strength, and our direction. So we pray and we ask this in your name. Amen. And I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and we're going to close by doing the we version of the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.